Oh, what's up everybody? I'm Matt Gary, and on this episode of Coding with the Force, I'm going to show you how to make your Aura components and your Lightning Web components communicate with each other. Alright guys, so let me show you what we're going to be making today. It is not a beautiful thing, but that is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to figure out how to transfer data between an Aura component and an LWC, or in reverse from an LWC to an Aura component. So while what we're making isn't beautiful, it's very useful for a lot of different scenarios. You might be asking, why would you ever need to do this, or why would you want to do this? There's plenty of reasons, one of which you're probably here for, but the two main ones are, number one, unfortunately, LWC cannot do everything that Aura can do. There are a handful of things that Aura is still the only thing that's capable of doing it. So for instance, if you wanted to open a tab in a sales or service console, or any console app really, only Aura can do that. But you probably don't want to build your entire component in Aura just because it's the only thing that can open a console app. You just want to build that very, very, very small piece of it in Aura and transfer data between it when you need it to. The other big reason is lots of orgs have gigantic, amounts of Aura already, and you might need to build on those Aura components from time to time. Well, it's in both you and probably your company or client or whoever's best interest to build on top of that Aura with LWC. And the reason that that's the case is because, at least for UI heavy things, LWC is considerably faster and much more performant than Aura. Also, you can get things done with a lot less code a lot of the time in Lightning Web Components. But that being said, those are the two biggest reasons, right? So you want to expand upon an existing Aura component. You don't have time to redo the whole thing, but you want to add new parts of it using Lightning Web Components. And then, unfortunately, there's a few things that Aura can do that LWC can't. So let's figure out how those communication channels actually end up working. They're pretty simple. But if you've never done them before, they can be pretty confusing the first time you do it. Okay. Real quick, I realized after I rewatched this after recording it that I didn't actually show you what the app we're building does. So let me show you that real quick. Let me pull it up here and we'll switch over to it. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Right, this up here is the Lightning Web component. This down here is the Aura component. And we're going to build something that allows you to type whatever you want. Up here, click this button, and then it transfers data to the Aura component. And then down here, this is the Aura component. And we can type whatever we want into its Lightning input. Click this button and it'll be transferred back to the Lightning Web component up here at the top. Okay, that's it. Now you know what you're building. Let's get back to the rest of the video. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is actually make a Lightning or an Aura component. So before I get too far into this, let me just state, because lots of people frequently ask, this IDE is called IntelliJ, and I'm using the Illuminated Cloud 2 plugin to make it work with Salesforce. If you want to know how to set that up, I have a video for it. Go check it out. It's pretty simple, and it is really, really great. Otherwise, you can still use Visual Studio Code or whatever other IDE to get this done if you would rather do it that way. It'll all work the same, really. Okay, so what should we name this Aura component? I'm going to name it Aura Communication. And I also need to create a Lightning controller for it. I am not going to do anything with this Aura component yet. We'll come back to it basically at the end of this. but I need to set it up right now. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is create a Lightning application, and I like to create these because it allows you to demo your apps as you're building them, whether they're Lightning Web Components or they are Aura components. Instead of going into the Lightning app builder and configuring this setup, you can actually just import them all into this Lightning application that we're going to set up here and demo them that way. I think it's a little faster, it's a little easier, especially if you're building a big component with lots of pieces. Okay, so what do we name this? I'll name it communications demo, and just hit the enter button a couple times here. And we only need to do two things here. We're not really going to do much with this app at all, but we're going to say this extends force slids, and we're going to import our Aura communications component within here. So basically all we've done here is we've said, okay, we are wanting this application to have access to the SLDS style sheets, and we also want to import our custom Aura communication component that we just created just a second ago. And that's it. That's all we're gonna do for this Lightning application anyway. Plenty more to do with the Aura component and the Lightning Web component, but for the application, that's it. So the next thing we'll do is we'll create a Lightning Web component. If you didn't know, Lightning Web components, they have to start with a lowercase letter, at least as of today. So I am just going to do that. I really wish I could make them start with capitals, but you can't. Okay, so what are we going to do? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the HTML to the template. I'm going to zoom in just a little here just to make it super big, about as big as I can get, without it being too much of my screen here. And we are just going to create a very simple paragraph tag and say this is the data received from Aura, or from the Aura component. And we're going to create a Lightning input. This is basically our input field where we're going to be able to type things. We're going to give this a class because we're going to need to take a look at this in our JavaScript controller in just a little bit. So I'm just going to call this data to send, and I'll give it placeholder text. This is completely optional, but enter text to transfer. Okay. And then last but not least, we're going to make a Lightning button. And I'm going to give this button the variant of brand, so we know that this is the button in our Lightning Web component. And we're going to give it a label of pass data to Aura component. And that's it for now. We're going to have to come back here in just a little bit to add a couple small things, but we haven't done anything in the JavaScript controller yet, so if we added them right now, they would be meaningless to the template and also meaningless to you. But we'll get to that in just a second. So if we come over here to our JavaScript controller for our Lightning Web component, we're going to need to import a couple more things. We're gonna, oh, keyboard. Okay, we're gonna need to import a couple more things if my keyboard doesn't blow up. Looks like it's about to die, so I'm just gonna plug it in here. And I think we're good. Okay, we're good. And we're gonna give it we're gonna import the API in track. And I'm a drop line bracket guy, so bear with me if you hate drop line brackets. I'm sorry. I promise it's worth it still. But I do visually like drop lines better, and I'm sorry about it. So I'm going to create a variable here called data received, and I'm going to give it the @track decorator. And what that means is If this variable is updated at any point in time, it's going to basically inform the component that anywhere that this data received variable is displayed, it needs to be updated. So, say you set this somewhere in your JavaScript controller and you want to always make sure that it's up to date in the component without, having to do anything else to inform it other than change the value in it, or change the value of this variable, then the @track decorator does that for you. So we'll see that in just a little bit. And we're going to make two methods, one to send data to our Aura component and one to retrieve data, or actually have data sent to us from our Aura component. So the first method, we'll call it communicate to Aura. And we're going to do a couple little things in here. So we're going to declare a variable called data to send and make it equal to this .template.query selector. Boom, boom, boom. And we're going to get the data to send class and its value. So for people that aren't super fluent in JavaScript or Lightning Web Components, this might look super confusing, but it really isn't. The let keyword is just a way to declare a variable, and the let keyword is different from the var keyword because it declares this variable within the scope of this block here. So whatever block it is in. Whereas the var declaring this variable with a var keyword would let it be accessible above and below it anywhere in this JavaScript. This is just a nice way to keep this variable within the scope of this method. This .template is basically saying this Lightning Web component. So this .template is the Lightning Web component. We're going to select the first instance of our data to send class and grab the value that is in that element with the data to send class. So we can see that our Lightning input has a class of data to send, so that is what we're picking up here with that query selector, and we're going to get the value, whatever the input value is that we've typed in. Okay. Maybe a little confusing if this is the first time doing it, but pretty simple, once you understand it. So the next thing we're going to do is declare another variable with the keyword constant, and we're going to call this send data event and make it equal to a new custom event. And we're going to name this custom event something like send data would work. And we will pass this event a little bit of data. So data to send. Boom. And I'm going to explain this in just a second, so just bear with me and then we'll go through it and I will explain it to you. Send data event. There we go. All right, so what does this thing mean and what does it do? It's a pretty simple thing. Again, this const is just another way to declare a variable in JavaScript. This is the equivalent of like a final variable in Apex or in Java or C# or any other language that uses final variables. That's what a const is. So once you declare it, you can't alter it. And I'm creating a new custom event. So and I'm naming that custom event send data. So you can think of this custom event as like in JavaScript, you use the onClick event a lot. This would be an onSendData event. And within that onSendData event, I'm passing it an object of any type. So this is just technically a JavaScript object that I'm passing in here. It looks like JSON. If you look at it, in a console log, it looks like JSON, but it's really what we're doing here is passing it a JavaScript object in this detail portion of the custom event. If you want more information about custom events, you just have to look at JavaScript custom events in general. This is not a Salesforce specific thing. And then you need to dispatch this event so that you know, whoever is looking for this event to happen, whatever component is looking for this event to happen, is going to actually have this event dispatched to them with the data that we want to pass it. Okay, pretty simple. It is what? It's really basically a total of 3 lines of code if I put this all on one line. Yeah, very, very simple to pass this information. The next thing we're going to do is create an @API method called receive data. And we're going to allow something to pass us some data, and then we're going to say this dot data received equals data. All right, so what is this method doing? If you didn't know, the @API decorator basically makes this method publicly accessible to any of its housing components. So we're going to put this Lightning Web Component within our Aura component in just a minute. And because we have this @API decorator here, the Aura component is going to be able to directly access this method in our Lightning Web Component and pass data into it. And then basically all we're doing here is saying, let's put data, you know, let's make the data received variable equal to the data that we pass in here. Simple. Nothing to it. Easier than you might have thought when you opened this video. And we're going to now come back to our HTML part of our Lightning Web Component, and we're going to add a couple things. So we're going to say display our data received variable up here in this paragraph tag, and then we also need an onClick event that calls our communicate to our Aura method. Okay, and that's it. That is our Lightning Web Component. Very simple. So basically, once we click this button, it's going to communicate to our Aura component. Obviously, we have to set up something on our Aura component end to receive that message. But for our Lightning Web Component anyway, that is all we need to do. So let's go into our Aura component now that we've set up our Lightning Web Component and figure out what we've got to get done in there. This is also very simple, but it, you know, again, it is confusing for the first time that you do it. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create an Aura attribute. We'll give it a name. We'll call that the data received, and we'll give it a type of string. And we will also import our Lightning Web Component, so LWC underscore communication, and we will give this an Aura ID because we are going to need that to access this component in just a little bit. And we can call this whatever. I'm going to call it LWC component or LWC comp, and well, that's it. And then we are going to do a couple other things, Lightning input, and give it a label. Actually, I don't know why it says that's required. The label is actually not required for Lightning input. I just need an Aura ID for this Lightning input too, because I'm going to need to grab it. It's going to be the data that we pass into our Lightning Web Component. And then we also need a Lightning button. And we'll give it a label called pass data to LWC. Okay, we're going to have to come back here again and add some things. Oh, actually, there's one more thing I should add here. And it's just a simple paragraph tag like in the other one. This is the data received from our LWC. Okay. And yeah, so pretty simple. I guess I can go over this really quick. If you didn't know, Aura attributes are basically like a weird way to declare variables for your Aura component. I'm importing my Lightning Web Component here and giving it an Aura ID of LWC component. That way I can easily access it in the JavaScript controller here in just a moment. I'm also creating a Lightning input that has an Aura ID of data to pass, because I do also need to access this Aura input here in a moment. And then I just have a Lightning button with a label called Pass Data to LWC. Then we're going to click here in a minute, and that's pretty much it. So if we come over here to the controller for our Aura component, we're going to need to create two methods, just like we did in the Lightning Web Component. Basically, one to send data to the Lightning Web Component and one to receive data from that Lightning Web Component. So we'll just call this receive data, I guess. That makes sense. And we'll give it a function of component int helper, and we'll go on ahead and declare our other function, pass data to LWC. Whoa. Okay. And I'm declaring this wrong for Aura. There we go. Okay, so now we have our two methods, and let's figure out what we're going to do with them. For the receive data, this is pretty simple. If you remember, back here in our Lightning Web Component, what did I do here? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I put that in quotes. You don't actually need to do that. You shouldn't do that. Okay. If you remember, back here, we created a custom event, and we named it send data. Okay. So we want a way for our Aura component to act on this event. So when this event is dispatched down here, we want our Aura component to receive that event and then do something with that event. So we do this in the same way that you would do an on-click event or something along those lines. Up here where you've declared your Aura component, you basically say on. So you'll always put on, no matter what you've called your custom event, put the word on first, and then put the name of your event. So on your send data custom event, we're going to call our receive data method in our Aura controller. So we have this receive data method. When that send data custom event gets fired in our Lightning Web Component, we are going to call this method and do something with that data. Cool. Again, easier than you might have thought. That is really all there is to it. The next thing we're going to do is basically update our components attribute to receive the data, or to deal with the data that we received. So we're going to say v.dataReceived is equal to event.getParam, and I do not remember what I called this. Plus, it's important that you see that we're just going to get whatever we named this in here. So we're going to grab whatever we put in this detail. We're going to grab this data to send, and and we're going to go back here to our Aura components controller and put that in there. So we're going to get the parameter called data to send from our event, and we're going to put it in our Aura components data received attribute. Okay, so right here we are setting our components data received attribute with the data to send parameter that our Lightning Web Component is sending out right here in the detail portion of our custom event. Cool. All right. So that, believe it or not, that's it for this part. That's how you receive the data and store it. As far as how you actually pass data to your Lightning Web Component, that is pretty simple too, but it's a little more complicated. So let's just see how that's done. We're going to declare a variable called string to send, and we're going to name it, or we're going to set it equal to component dot find dot get v dot value. And let me remember what I named this. Okie dokie. Let's break this down. So we're declaring a variable called string to send, and we are looking in our component for an Aura ID. So something with an Aura ID called data to pass. That happens to be our Lightning input. I gave it the Aura ID data to pass. And we are wanting to get the value of that that elements that we're grabbing through the Aura ID. So in this case, it's our Lightning input element we're getting the value of. Cool. And then we are going to do the following. We're going to say component dot find again, and we are going to find our Lightning Web Component. So we have imported our Lightning Web Component here. We gave it the Aura ID of LWC comp, and we want to find it. So we're going to say component.find LWC comp, and then we're going to access that public method called receive data, I think is what I called it, and I might need to change that because I think it's going to have a problem with this. We'll see. I don't think it will, but I've named this receive data too. Actually, I'm just going to say receive LWC data to be super safe here. Sometimes when you name these methods the same, they really have some problems. I don't want to get into that, but try to keep your method names unique. Sometimes they have problems identifying, your Lightning Web Component or your Aura component will have trouble identifying which receive data method you're actually trying to call. So I try to keep them unique. I don't think that would be a problem here, but again, I'd rather be safe than sorry. Okay, so then we do string to send here, and that's it. So basically, what have we done? We've grabbed the value of our Lightning input for our Aura component. We have found our Lightning Web Component that we imported into the page. We are calling the receive data method that we declared public here through that @API decorator. And we are passing it the value of our input. So that's it. And then the last thing we need to do is come back here, and on our Lightning button, we need to say on click, let's call the c dot pass data to LWC method. So we're just saying on the click of that button, call this method, and pass it the data. All right, so pending I didn't mess anything up, which is always a possibility. Since this saved wrong once, I'm just going to go through and save everything one more time. And okay. If I've done everything right, we should get something similar to what you saw in the beginning here. Let's open this app in the browser. So once this loads, I'll show you how to get there normally. So if you're not using IntelliJ and Illuminated Cloud, and you can't just click this button up here to open it in the browser, which is real convenient, then you can just go to whatever the name of your Salesforce instance is, so whatever your my domain is, if you have one, well, you'd have to have one to make these. And then you would do C / and then the name of your app.app. Okay, pretty simple to get there. Okay, spoiler alert, I'm about to fail here, and this is like the 5th or 6th time I've recorded this. So I wasn't going to go back and do it again. However, there are some somewhat decent debugging techniques that you can see me do, and it's only about a minute-long failure, so just bear with me through this for a second. So let's see if this works, and I didn't mess something up. So we'll say, hi, Aura. This is LWC, and see if it gets passed. And it didn't, so I must have missed something. Let's see if our Aura goes anywhere. At least our Aura is good. I probably just forgot something in the LWC when I went back here, so let's go check it. Okie dokie. We've got our on-click communicate to Aura method. What did I forget here? Class data to send. And we've got our on-click method. Communicate to Aura. Did I miss something silly? This .template .query selector data to send .value. Well, I guess I can take this time to show you the ways to debug this. That's pretty useful, at least in my opinion, from time to time. Okay, so the first thing we'll make sure is that we called this console.log communicating to Aura. And in our Aura component, we will check a couple things. First, that we set this up right. On send data. On send data, we call the receive LWC method. Receive LWC method. Data to send, okay. And then we'll say console.log. We received the data, and we can take a look at the data that we received if we actually got it sent to us, and say get param, or actually we'll just do this. We'll stringify the event to see if we actually are looking at the right parameter here. Okay, let's give it another shot. Hopefully it's something easy. I'm not sure why this isn't working, considering I've done this a handful of times now. All right, once it's done saving here, we'll probably figure it out pretty quick. And we'll do a Control-Shift-R to hard refresh this page. Right-click it and inspect it, and go to our console. And we'll figure out why our Lightning Web Component, hopefully, isn't passing data. So we can see communicating to Aura. And in here, we have data to send Lightning. I bet I was just so, I know exactly what I did. I didn't set this up to receive it. There it is. Always something. Okay, so we've got v.data received. Okay, so everything was working, which you can see in the console. Whoa, the console over here. I thought it was still behind there. So you can see that because you see that we were calling the communicating to Aura method successfully, and when we received the data, you can see that there is a data to send attribute within our event that got passed to us. So, and it also had the word lightning in it. So we could tell, okay, everything was actually being passed as anticipated, which then led me to figure out that the only thing I did was forget to set this up. I actually have to display it in the paragraph tag, right? That's important to do. All right, so let's refresh this one more time and figure out if things work. And they do. So great. It looks like our component is working. Everybody's communicating with one another. Matt, come on, bro. Yeah. And that's it. So with one minor setback there, me forgetting to import the or rather just display the data in the paragraph tag, everything was working out great, and that actually gave me the opportunity to show you how to debug something relatively simple within Lightning Web Components and Aura Components. So that's it for today. Hopefully this helps somebody out there. If you want more information on any of this, please check out the blog post. Yeah, you can get this code on the GitHub page. Make sure to subscribe if you want more of this kind of content. And that's it. So thank you guys for watching, bearing with me today while I debug my own code right in front of you. And I'll see you guys next time.